Welcome everyone to my talk on multi-view embedding. To quickly introduce myself, my name is Fré. I'm a freelance Flutter developer. I live in Belgium, where I provide consulting, coaching, and development services through my company, Skystone Apps. And I'm currently taking on the role as lead app developer at a company called Robaus. Now, what Robaus does is they provide a cloud-based ERP system for the construction and installation sector. And within their platform, they have two mobile apps written in Flutter, and one web application written in a different technology. Does anybody know this one? Google Web Toolkit. Does that ring a bell to some? So very much, I would say, older technology. And at Robaus, mostly the features are developed first on the web platform and then find their way into the apps. But sometimes it's just the other way around, where we build a certain feature for one app, it gets used into another one, and then we want to provide that functionality as well to our web users. And there's several ways to do this, because Flutter runs on web. Perfect, right? So what we could do is just simply have a Flutter web application and run it in a separate tab. Unfortunately, so it's by far the simplest, but unfortunately it gives limited interaction, and it's actually very disruptive for the user experience. So you get sent off to somewhere else, and you might not find your way back to the original application. We could do this a bit better using iframes. Who likes iframes? I don't believe you. So the thing is, it would give you somewhat of an integration, but it comes with very complex communication over those post-message APIs. You'll have some hurdles concerning security and so on, and you'll even have some performance overhead because you're loading in a complete new browser context. Now, luckily, there's a third way, and I guess most people know what this talk is about, so you'll probably guess that it's to embed our Flutter app inside our host application. So this gives you seamless integration. It does come with some setup, and I feel it's an area that's not really explored a lot yet. So I'm going to tell you all about it, so by the end of this talk, we'll all be experts on it. Now, the idea of embedding Flutter into different web applications isn't actually new. If we go back to March 2021, when Flutter 2.0 was released, it was the first stable release for Flutter for web. And back then, you could only run your Flutter app inside the body element of an HTML page. Now, the team wanted to provide more flexibility on this matter. And a few months later, they published a document containing all the necessary steps that we need to do to make this possible. This document was called Astral Projections for Flutter Web to enable out-of-body experiences. I mean, I love a good pun. But it took almost a year and a half until Flutter 3.7 to see the first results of this, when we were actually able to customize in which type of element we want to run our Flutter app. And since one is just a special case of many, about a year and a half later, so a year ago, since 3.24, we're able to have multiple views on our embedded Flutter apps. And it doesn't stop there, because in the latest release, they also included new functionality. But I'll tell you more about that later. So I've been talking a bit about the history, but I actually haven't really shown what an embedded Flutter web app could be. So let's go to an example. To back this up with a simple story, this is my hometown of Bruges in Belgium, lovely historic city. And like most historic cities, they tend to come with quite some tourists. Now, these tourists, they don't only want to visit buildings and see old stones or whatever, but they love to try the local delicacies as well. I hope everybody had lunch and this is not disturbing. But so yeah, we have millions of tourists each year, and they all want to try out these things. And I have this friend of mine. He's very business focused, and he wants to monetize this. So this is my business focused friend right here. And just like anybody wanted to get some business going, he vibe coded this amazing survey website called Belgium Bonanza to figure out which of these snacks are actually the most popular. But he had a problem. And suddenly I get a phone call from him and he says like, hey Fré, I got this amazing new survey website, but I just cannot get the counters to work. And I said like, don't worry, I got the perfect tool for the job. Because if there's one thing that Flutter truly shines in, it's creating counter apps, right? So I also said to him, like, you know what? I'm actually going to be in front of an international audience. Let me take a survey of potential tourists. So let's have a look at Belgium Bonanza. So I already opened up one of our first counters. Let's open up the other ones as well. There we go. And let's do a quick survey. So who likes fries? Okay. Let me see. Wait, keep them up. I'm counting. Yeah. Yeah, something like that, right? Yeah, sure. Oh, okay. There we go. Who likes chocolate? Okay, okay. I don't know if it's a little bit more, a little bit more. I should have just took an average on this, but who likes Belgian beers? Well, I don't have a minus button. Yeah. But okay, we have a few votes. Who loves waffles? Okay, I see multiple hands here. Yeah, okay. Definitely, let's put a lot on the waffles. Okay. Now, my friend is going to be super happy with this results because he's going to start the most amazing business out of this. But what I've shown here actually is we have an HTML page, a simple web application, which embeds one Flutter web app that contains multiple views. And each of these views have their own state, but they're also sharing state amongst each other, and they're communicating that back to the host website. So how can we set something like this up? Let's have a look. We had the demo. Let's have a look at how we can set up this multi-view embedding. So the first thing we'll need to have is an app to embed. Well, turns out that's quite easy to do in Flutter. So we create a new Flutter project, we have the counter app automatically, and we build it for web. And then we can have a look at what was actually generated, what was actually built in that. So if we look in the build folder, and we have a look at the index page, most of this stuff is actually about the web page, except this little script at the bottom, the Flutter bootstrap file. And this is what makes sure that your whole Flutter app is actually running within that web page. So let's have a look in that one. We see a lot of generated code, but we can split them up into 3 parts. The first part would be for the Flutter loader. The second part would contain some build configuration, which would also point to our entry point file. This is basically one file bundling up all of our Dart code that we've written and transpiled to JavaScript. And last but not least, the loader is executed, which initializes the engine and runs the app. So if we just have a look at the necessary files of this, we have the bootstrap file, our entry point file, so all our Dart code basically, which might also point to some assets. So what if we just copy that over into our Belgium Bonanza website, and then in the index page or in the HTML page of that, we also add that script there. Now, if we would refresh this, we would see this Belgium Bonanza website just for a split second, and then it would be replaced by the counter app. This is because by default, Flutter web applications still take on the whole body element. And what we actually want to do is, let's see, we want to take them or have them inside these category cards, as you see here. Oh, and just to make sure that everybody learns something, you can use emojis for IDs in HTML. Cool, right? Okay, so let's continue. How can we do that? How can we make sure that our Flutter web app actually is embedded in a different element? For that, we need to customize the initialization. And the way that we do that is by creating our own Flutter bootstrap file and adding it to the web folder. And you remember the generated one that looked like this? We can actually replace that by a template that has several placeholders, and at build time, it will just put the generated code inside that. That way, we get complete control over how and when we want to start loading up our Flutter app. And we can add several different configurations to this. So you see the service worker here. I'm not going to go into that right now. But you can add different configuration. So we can basically say, load this Flutter app up into this host element. So it doesn't use the body element by default. And if we do that, we have our counter app embedded within another element. Great, right? We have done it. But I mean, this is single view embedding. I think you all came to see multi-view embedding, right? Okay. So there's a few more steps that we need to go through. I would say there's 5 of them, so bear with me. But good news is we had the first one, which was to customize the Flutter bootstrap file. And then if we want to continue on that, we actually have to provide some more configuration. So going back in that bootstrap file, we have another method that we should overload, which is called the onEntryPointLoaded. This is a basic implementation. It basically gives you an engine initializer. You initialize that, and from that, you can run the app. These are all put into different steps so that in the whole process, you can choose when you start this and when not. You get complete control over that. Now, to enable multi-view, we simply pass in the multi-view enabled flag. And that should be it, right? It's also another thing that we'll need would be a reference to the app object that we get back from running the app. So let's try that out. Well, we get an issue. And this issue contains a lot of text, well explained actually, but it talks about the implicit view that is missing and suggests to use run widget instead of run app. Now, generally speaking, if you have a multi-view enabled web application, you cannot use run app, but you have to use run widget. Now, this is where it gets a little bit technical, so bear with me. This is step number 3. The reason for that is that in a normal Flutter app, the platform will provide you with an implicit Flutter view because you only have one view in there. So this Flutter view is actually an area on the host platform in which your widgets can render. And what run app does is it basically calls run widget and just binds your widget to that implicit Flutter view. But what happens if you have a multi-view app? You can have certain times that you don't have any views yet. You can have multiple views. So there is no implicit view at that time. The way that we solve that is by providing a view collection and basically asking the platform, how many Flutter views do you have? Great, for every Flutter view, I want to create my widget in there. So that's great, right? But the problem with this is run widget is only called once in the beginning. So when we want to add and remove multiple views during the lifetime of our app at runtime, we have to have a rebuild mechanism. And this is where it becomes a little bit more code, but it's actually just wrapping the view collection that we had within a stateful widget. And on that, we will listen to the widgets binding via a widgets binding observer. This will provide us with a did change metrics callback, which is going to be called every time a view is added, removed, or resized, or several other things. And for now, we're just going to simply trigger a rebuild by calling setState. So yeah, let's have a look. It looks like our error is gone. Great, right? So if you want to try this, I recommend to have a look at the documentation. There's an example about a multi-view app that you can start to play around with. It's actually easy to get started. You basically can use it as follows. Let's see, so that was step number 3. Step 4 is obviously adding views. So you remember that reference to the votes app that we had earlier? Well, that comes with two methods. One of them is add view, which will have to say like, okay, add this view to this element. And once you do that, you get an identifier for that, which you can use later to remove it as well. Now, if we do that, we have multiple counters, right? Let's say more confetti here, yeah. But they all look the same. I don't know for what I voted here. So yeah, let's change that by adding some initial data. So when you start a view, you can add initial data. This could be any type of JavaScript object. And from within your widget tree, from anywhere actually, you can ask, which view am I running on right now? And with that, you can ask for the initial information, initial data, and maybe use some JS interop just to make it easy to deal with casting and so. And actually, once you have the possibility to add initial data, you can do anything. So you can have like this one Flutter embedded web app that has basically 3 different apps. So we have a counter, a to-do list, and even the Wondrous app can just run in that. So let's just refresh this. So the 5 steps to create a multi-view app would be to customize the Flutter Bootstrap script, set it to multi-view enabled. Then we'll have to use run widget instead of run app, and listen to the available Flutter views and bind them to widgets. Once we have that all done, we can add views and preferably pass in some initial data as well. So let's talk about that sharing state, because this was not included in these examples. Now, there's several ways that you can do this, but I want to talk about sharing the state across the views first. So this would be the app that we had. You have your multi-view app, that the stateful widget that we built that contained that view collection. And then for every Flutter view, we have an instance of our app. And we want to share some state between the siblings of my app. Now, in Flutter, in general, how do we share states among siblings? We just lift it up, right? And this works perfectly, because as long as your widget doesn't require or doesn't result in a render object, it doesn't have to be within a Flutter view. So you can just add whatever you want on there. So it's easy to share state like that. We also saw sharing the state or communicating it back to the host application. This happens via JS interop. You can use the add.js or add.js export annotations. Won't go into that too deep, but you can basically go from Dart to JavaScript, and from JavaScript to Dart by actually in Dart setting a new class or function onto the window, and then you can just call that. But this is a separate subject. I won't go into this any further. So one thing I haven't talked about was hosting, because I actually made an assumption here. I assumed that all the code that we have for a Flutter app and our host application is actually on the root of the same domain. But in reality, it's probably going to be something more like this. Could be on a different path, or even a completely different domain. And this will already happen when you start to develop. Now, you can adjust this as well by customizing the loader once more and adding the entry point base URL, as well as the place that you store or you host your assets from. So these 2 things you can change. And you can choose to use a full URL, or actually just change the path there. Now, you know how these things go with live demos. It's like, did anybody see the issue I made in the live demo? I just need to go back to it, because else I'm never going to get to this. So I had this underscore, like this is not professional. So let's see. Let's fix this right now, because I'll never get to it. Let's debug this thing. Where can we find this? Okay, widget inspector. I don't remember where this is in code, so I wrote this like years ago, I think. You wrote yesterday. So okay, let's see here. We have this, and we get sent to I can see it immediately where the issue came from. So yeah, let's make that change. Let's fix this, And there we go. I mean, that's a lot better, right? And my business friend will be super happy because we didn't lose the votes of this international survey. Okay, great. So what I wanted to show with that is that you still get all the necessary tools for debugging, and you even have hot reload, which was enabled in the latest version of Flutter. It was already available as an experimental flag in the previous stable version, but it wasn't working yet for multi-view. So that's all at your disposal right now. If I'm not mistaken, it's only working if you debug on Chrome. I don't think it's available yet if you run it through the web server, but they're working on that as well. So we'll definitely see that soon. Whoever has issues with course? Somebody who never has issues with course? So no, you can actually add the web header argument there, and you can add response headers from your debugging server that's running, which would allow you to set up this course issues during development. And because you're working in two different projects, you can also use the web launch URL to actually point it to your host application that embeds your app, just to get quickly started whenever you start a debugging session. And this comes with all the things that you need, such as breakpoints, the widget inspector, as you saw, and so on. All right. One more thing, though. If we're working in a web environment, one of the things that we should always be careful with is reducing the loading times. And for people that went to the Jasper talk, maybe saw it already also, but you can do that by using a certain keyword. Remember this example here? I'm going to come back to that because in this one, you can actually have multiple features of your embedded app that you might not need in a user session. And you don't want to download all this stuff up front because it would result in quite a big file size. This was a simple example, and it's already at 4 megabytes. If you would add a lot more stuff, it's just going to increase. But you can basically use the deferred as keyword to defer the loading of those libraries. So you just add it on your imports. And what this will do is the compiler will split up your bundle, your main.dart.js, into separate logical chunks. And whenever you need it, you just call the method load library first, and from that point, it downloads what you need or gets it from the cache. So you don't need to all download that up front. And if we then have a look at the build folder, you'll see that we have all these different chunks. It's not just one file anymore, and they can have completely different sizes. But the important thing is that our main.dart.js has gotten a lot smaller. And since this is all deferred, it will probably continue to stay at 2 megabytes in this example. All right, so before we round this up, I want to have some closing tips and some common pitfalls that we had in projects at Robaus with this. And the first thing would be about event propagation. So as you notice here, it's quite nice. Like you hover over the Flutter view with your mouse, and it transitions. Well, this is actually done by the host platform. And while this is nice for this example, it could get in the way. And the reason is that pointer events such as taps and hovers and so on are not caught by the Flutter view, but they're still propagated to the web view. So if you would have like a clicky listener on that, it would still be there. It would still be called, which you might not want to have. And that's the responsibility of the host app to take care of. Another thing about this is that your host element's children will be cleared and replaced by a Flutter view. So don't keep anything in there that you might need later because it's gonna be gone. And when it comes to URL strategy, a default Flutter web app will use the hash URL strategy to interact with the browser history and the URL bar and so on. I've seen this cause a lot of issues in multi-view embedded apps. And I feel This is maybe like really a shortcut, but I feel it's generally not needed. You can implement it however you want, but you could just set it to null before you call run widget. Another thing that we had some issues with is telemetry. Does somebody uses Datadog or tools such as Session Replay on web? So it's super nice. You get to see like where users go and so on. But as you can see in this example, we're first on a normal HTML view right now. Then we click on something and suddenly it's all gone. And the reason for this is that Flutter uses CanvasKit and not HTML, but Datadog in this example relies on HTML snapshots to make this work. So definitely be aware of this. And just to close off, be a good guest. We're actually being a guest on another's host platform, which could be managed by different teams. So don't make it hard for them. Make sure you have a clear interface between JavaScript and Flutter, so we can all just be kind to our fellow web developers as well. So that's all I had. I would kindly ask you to scan this QR code and leave me some feedback. You'll also find the links to slides and demo project and some other documentations on there as well. So definitely scan it. And last but not least, I have a Dash plushie to give away to the first person who can tell me which keyword does the lazy loading. I had a hand raised there, so I'll be kind to you. Here, come take it. Oh, she can fly. She can fly.